Welcome to the Blue Series Topic 5, Cicchetti Projecting the Future. Presented by Cicchetti International Classical Ballet as part of the centenary celebrations on the formation of the Cicchetti Society in London in 1922. Cicchetti International Classical Ballet was formed in 1997, and to quote the second chair, Betty Sievert, as a united commitment to preserving and fostering the pedagogy and technique of Maestro Enrico Cicchetti. In 2001, CICB hosted the first international competition, which was held in Australia. The second was held in Canada in 2008, followed by the United Kingdom in 2011, the United States in 2014, and Italy in 2017. Unfortunately, it was to be held in Australia in 2020, but due to the worldwide COVID pandemic, had to be cancelled. But we are very excited to announce that it will see a new light again, and in 2024 take place in the United States. This topic, Cicchetti Projecting the Future, touches on the lives of young Cicchetti graduates who have participated in these competitions and where they are today. This will be presented in two parts. Part 1 reflects on the Australian Joshua Hunt, who won the junior division in Florence, Italy in 2017. We hope you will enjoy the insights of these young graduates. Sit back and enjoy. And welcome to Joshua Hunt. We've been so excited to have you as part of our centenary celebrations for Cicchetti International Classical Ballet. And Joshua Hunt was the winner of the junior division of the Cicchetti International Classical Ballet's competition that actually was inaugurated in Australia in 2001. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the introduction. But Josh went to Florence and was the winner of the junior division. And so we thought we'd actually have a time with you, Josh, about your life from there, or we'll go back a little bit previously to that as part of our topic 5, Cicchetti Projecting the Future. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's all right. And Josh is now in Germany. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about where you are now, because I understand you just had the opening night in your new company. So perhaps you could just tell us about the new company a little bit, and then we'll go back.
Yeah, sure. Definitely very exciting times. After so many years of training, finally being in a company, it's still like something that I'm processing because, I don't know, it brings me so much joy that I can call it like my job, even though it definitely doesn't feel like work because it's something you do for so many years. And it's just nice to be able to do what you've always wanted to do because many people are searching for what they want to do. But I've known this for quite a long time, and I'm just really glad that I've finally gotten to this point. So it's quite fulfilling for me. So I've started this year in August at Ballet Theatre Magdeburg, which is in Germany. It's quite close to Berlin. It has a new director. So just this year, Jörg Mannes, he's from Austria and he has taken over the directorship here. And many new dancers have started together and we've just had our first premiere. So we were busy rehearsing and now we've had our first show. So it's all very exciting and I'm just happy to be working on new choreography, absorbing new information, and I'm just enjoying being in a new environment as well.
Fantastic. What was the opening night performance? What did you perform in?
there was two pieces that were by the director. One was called Verklärte Nacht, and the other one was called Maler 4. They were both set to music by Austrian composers, and they were played live by the orchestra. One was like a half an hour piece, and it was a bit more narrative based,
Mhm.
and the second piece was about 55 minutes, and it was a bit more abstract, a way to introduce the new company to the audience. So it was really cool because I've been used to having quite short pieces in an evening. And now we had like a whole hour and a half evening. So lots of opportunity to get experience on the stage and work with lots of new material. So it was definitely very interesting.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to take you way back. Joshua comes from Torquay, Australia, originally. Torquay is a beachside area, and I think, well, what would you say, about an hour and a half away from Melbourne?
Yeah, roundabouts.
About, yeah. So it was quite a bit of a distance. So, how did you start dancing?
I think my mum told me that I was always just very active, like around the house. I was always just jumping around all over the place, very active. So she just thought maybe we should find something that I can use my energy for. And I think she saw an ad in the paper, in the newspaper, for a dance studio in Geelong.
Hmm.
And she's like, oh, we should just try it out. So me and my sister both went there to try it out. And from what my mum's told me, we both really enjoyed it. So we just kept going from there. And now, 14 years later, I'm in the company.
Fantastic. I think it might have been that sea air that got you moving down there. It's a beautiful area, Torquay. And you go on to, well, you start in your local area, well, Geelong, which is about what, half an hour from Torquay, or probably a little bit less. Um, but you moved to the city of Melbourne to take up a full scholarship with the Victorian College of the Arts Secondary School. What year level did you start at the school?
I started in year eight.
Hmm.
So normally you start in year seven, but I came 1 year later because that's when I found out about the school.
Hmm.
So I was at Infinite Dance Studios in Geelong, and then someone told me about the school and I auditioned. At first, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go because, like, it was quite far from where I was living because I was
Yeah.
still commuting 2 hours
Mm.
to VCAS in Melbourne and 2 hours back at the start. And towards the end, I was then staying in Melbourne. So it was
Uh,
definitely a journey, all right.
well, I thought it was amazing. And Joshua, that's where I got to meet Joshua, because I was the head of Chicketty Studies, Chicketty at VCAS, where Josh took his major Chicketty examinations. Um, did you enjoy working with the Chicketty syllabus?
Yeah, I really did. I really have fond memories of those times. Like, I must say, there was definitely challenges in the way because I was doing so much commuting and all that stuff. It does make it challenging those times because often we had our normal syllabus and normal curriculum at school, and then extra was the Shiketi classes. Because I've always definitely had like a passion for dance, but it was a lot for me, I must say. So I always have fun memories of the time, but it was also very challenging. Like, but I think that also made it fun because like we were there together, all quite tired still, but I think like we all still really enjoyed learning. And I just remember I tried out some different classes and I just enjoyed the energy and the approach. That's really, I remember the first kind of thoughts that I had about it because I did a trial class and I just remembered very friendly atmosphere. Because when I came to BCAS and when I tried out Shiketi, ballet was just all very new to me in a way. So I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. All I knew is that it just gave me joy.
Well, and joy it certainly did. And the very exciting thing that happened, besides, and then with the Chickadee program, we had various medal awards and so forth that Joshua was always involved in. And yes, he was amazing, like in the fact that when most students would finish school at 5:30. We'd have the Cicchetti program that would run after class, and it wouldn't be till 7 o'clock at night. Then he'd take that training journey back to Torquay. But as a dedicated student, he was eligible for the Cicchetti International Classical Ballet competition, which, as I said, started in 2001 in Australia. It then moved on to Calgary in Canada, and then there was a competition in Manchester in UK. It then also moved to Richmond, Virginia, and then in 2017, it was in Florence in Italy, which was very exciting for us. And we had an amazing team, Australia, which I fondly look at some of the photos, Josh. There's a lovely photo, iconic photo that we'll have a look at of some of our dancers. Uh, Dario, who's now with the professional year with the Queensland Ballet Company, and Lily Menchenko, who is now dancing also in Germany after being with the John Cranko School. And I also look at the names of the dancers that we have who've gone on to have incredible careers throughout Europe. We had a very, very strong team indeed. Uh, the head of the adjudicating panel was Dame Monica Mason, and there was a very illustrious adjudicating panel there. Can you tell us what that experience was like as I think you would have been about, what, 14 at the time, maybe 15? Um, what was it like to come from Australia and launch into an international competition overseas?
It's actually hard for me to describe because at the time I really didn't know what I was getting myself into in a way. I think I just like wasn't so knowledgeable about all the ballet world, the people out there, the different companies. I think at first it was just like, wow, an opportunity to go overseas to dance. I think that at first struck me in a way. And then when I went there and there was all these people, I must even say I didn't even really know any of the panel or the jury because I just was quite new to everything ballet, but in a way that was gave me an opportunity to open my eyes and soak in all of these new things, which was really nice. But it was definitely awesome to be able to dance in a different place overseas.
Oh, well,
Um,
to some of that panel, I mean, I can list some of the names here. It was like Fabian Cerruti from the Paris Opera, Raymond Lukens, who was a ABT Artistic Associate, Oliver Matz from Tanz Academy in Zurich, Mikhail Marola from MM Company. There was Bella Ratchinskaya from Vienna, Samira Sadi from the English National Ballet School, Nicola Katrak from the Royal Ballet School, etc. It was a huge panel. I can remember that those chairs and all those judges there. And it was taken over a week of classes in both the classical and the contemporary genres. And of course, there was 56 or more dancers from all over the world. Can you remember mixing with the various dancers from around the world, and what was that like? And did it help you decide on interests overseas?
in a way, I think I came to the competition without even thinking about future possibilities. I was always just there for that experience. But meeting all the people from different places was always really nice. I'm always just a curious person. I enjoy learning from the other people. It's always just nice to open up your perspective, hear what it's like in different places, what their experiences is like, because often you only know your experiences. So I always just found it really interesting to hear the different approaches or their experiences at ballet school and what it's been like. So it really just helped me to gain more knowledge of what was out there. So I think, in a way, I wasn't ready to go overseas yet.
Hmm. Mhm.
but it definitely opened up my eyes to what was possible.
And even then, at a young age, you had the experiences of. I know you did contemporary dance at VCAS, but again, you go into those classes and you're experiencing a new style of um, m- moving again, which must help as a dancer progressing.
Definitely. I always just liked dancing. I think movement in general,
Mhm.
not always putting it in the categories. Sure, there's differences, but I think I always just enjoyed movement, exploring the possibilities of the body in space and in time. And I just think that's what I really enjoyed, expressing myself through movement and then finding these different tools and informations from these different genres. I just always really enjoyed because they complement each other, they can help you in the different genres as well. So I've always really enjoyed it, and I think all the different styles can help you for something that you want to focus on then.
Yeah, sure. And so you go back. I mean, you were awarded, as I said, the junior division as the winner, and you came away with lots of different awards. But again, you were young, and then you come back to Australia to continue your studies at VCAS. Then you go up to Brisbane to compete in the or you experienced, was it the contemporary prix that we have in Australia? Perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so after the competition, there was those offers, and at the time I wasn't quite ready.
Mm.
So I think I just needed my time to mature, to feel like I was ready to go out into that world. So then I had a bit more time at VCAS, and then I found out about the Brisbane Contemporary Prix, which was a new competition. It was actually the first year, so you didn't know exactly what to expect.
Mm.
But my mum has always encouraged me to just try things out, see what's there. So it was just a new experience, and it was nice because it was very well organized, lots of support, and the international community was there with a bit more of a focus on contemporary.
Mm.
And that was really great because that gave me new connections, things that I also hadn't heard about before as well. And then that opened the door to a new possibility, which ended up being the connection to how I came to Germany.
And that was Palooka?
Yeah, correct. I met Jason Beachy at that competition. I had a bit of a talk with him, and then he just invited me to come to see the school. In a way, he thought it was always just important that the dancer goes there themselves to make sure it's the right fit, not just for them, but also for us, that we feel like it's the right place for us to develop and train. So that's how I met Jason.
And so you moved to Palooka in Germany. Now, how old were you then, leaving Australia?
I think I had just turned 17, maybe like 16 going on 17 when I had done the move.
Hmm.
It's kind of crazy as well because I actually went to Europe to do that audition at Palooka, and I wasn't actually sure if I would come back because if I wanted to stay at Palooka after the audition, if I got accepted, then I would just stay in Germany. And if I didn't choose to, I would have come back. So I ended up staying because I liked it. And then I've spent 3 years there, and I just graduated in July.
Now, that is a big move, really, to from Australia to Germany. You know, I think I should sort of say, because I do know this, you do have relatives in Germany or in Europe.
Mm. It's
I
definitely helpful to have those connections, especially when you're doing such a big journey, to feel a bit more comfortable in such a new environment. I think that was definitely helpful that I had relatives here. I could
Mhm.
speak the language because when you're still young, for dancers, it can be quite normal to go international to get professional training. But for people that aren't really in the dance world, people before they're 18 moving overseas without their parents is kind of a crazy thing to hear.
So you had learnt German before you went overseas?
Yeah, I was lucky because like my mum like spoke German with me when I was a kid, and my dad spoke English with me. So when you're a kid, you're able to learn things more quickly. So I'm really grateful that they gave me both, and now I'm lucky because I can use both of them.
And so, what was the hardest thing about your going to Palooka, say in the first year?
It's interesting because I actually didn't find it too difficult. So it's even hard for me to think of something that was hard because, in a way, I think it was just the right moment.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
felt ready, and in a way, it wasn't too difficult. Of course, like you're very used to being with your family every day and having the support of them. So I think then just getting used to the independence and doing more stuff by yourself can be challenging.
mhm.
But I think I was relatively lucky to have a rather smooth transition with not too many difficulties because many of my peers at school, completely new language, completely new culture, they don't have family there. So I must say, I didn't have too many difficulties. So
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so what did you learn at Palooka, and what was the experience like there?
it was really great because I found they found a great balance between freedom and direction,
Mhm,
giving us the freedom to develop as the artists we want to be, but also giving us the direction when needed to help guide us, give us the tools and information. But in a way, I really appreciated the way they did it because it's not strict and harsh training where they mold us into dancers, but they are generous and give us the information, and it is up to us to use this information for how we want it because they try to create a healthy environment, which I really appreciate because you hear so many stories about not so ideal conditions in many places. So I was grateful to have that kind of environment. We got to choose our own uniform every day as well,
mhm,
so we can express ourselves the way we want to. We had a good balance between contemporary and ballet as well,
mhm.
which is often not so common. Like we did ballet and contemporary classes every single day. So we really had that equal training, which I really appreciated because for me, it was always hard to say if I wanted to go in one direction or the other. So for me, it was really the right place for me because that's what I wanted. I wanted both, and I got that there. So I was really happy about that.
I note that you've sort of continued well from being in the Young Creation Award as a finalist. Was it for the Prix de Lausanne, if I'm correct? That before I get to that, I just wondered because of that creativity. At VCAS, you were allowed that too. You had creative seasons, and there was times again that they allowed you to develop, and then that's happened, and it goes further in Palooka. What process do you think helps a young emerging dancer at an early age to fuel their creativity?
Yeah, it's a really great question because I haven't really thought about it necessarily like that before.
Mhm,
Because really, for me, it comes from the support that you have around yourself to have the confidence
mhm,
to be bold with your ideas and put them out there and to experiment with them. So it's really having that support and the environment that encourages you to try things out
mhm,
because I can't give like a guidebook of how necessarily that works, but because at a young age, you're bit more vulnerable to the influences around you. So I think I was just really lucky to have the right mentors and the right teachers to give me the confidence in myself to just try things out. And I think that allowed me to then just be bold and try out new things and be creative. And that I think that's what really allowed me to do that.
yeah, 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 sure. And so, can you tell us a little bit about that process or the experience that you had at the pre?
Hmm. It's really lucky because the Prix de Lausanne has certain partner schools that they work with, where they have connections, where they can help the competitors of the main competition at the Prix de Lausanne get scholarships or go to those schools to help further develop their training, to help with their connection into the professional world. Um, and then on the side, there's a new initiative that the Prix de Lausanne created, and it's called the Young Creation Award, where young dancers at these partner schools have the opportunity to try out a choreography on one of their peers at the partner school and present that. And there's like a pre selection, and then 5 choreographies were then chosen, and we had the honor of being able to go there to Montreux in Switzerland, and we were able to present our choreography, work with our dancers, and show it on the stage to the jury, which was, yeah, a really cool experience because often dancers don't have that support to be able to show their choreography on that scale. Like that's kind of unheard of. So it's really great that the Prix Lausanne was able to support us on that. And I had a great time working on that choreography, learning what it's like to be on the other side, not being the mover, but being like the mentor and how you have to communicate to give the information, which I found really cool. And I really enjoyed the experience.
I think, and it seems to me that to develop as a choreographer uh, and an artist, a performing artist, that to have the life that you've led so far with the influences from various countries, living and working at a young age, and even the experience in Florence of the travel, the putting yourself perhaps in vulnerable positions and at the same time gaining confidence. People often talk about competitions in a negative way, but there is a positive, I think, if it's used correctly and you're mentored correctly in it. Would you agree with that, or would you like to expand on that?
I definitely agree, but I feel like there's a lot of nuance to it because young people have different mindsets in a way and how they approach things.
Mhm.
They're maybe not so established in the way that they think, so it's easier to compare yourself to other dancers, and then that reflects on your own self-worth or self-value. So it's hard to take those competitions sometimes in a positive light. I was lucky that I had the support to give me a mindset that allowed me to look on the positive sides of things to help me gain. So it's there's definitely both sides to it,
Yeah.
but I think it's definitely important to see that like there is like competition in general, like to get somewhere. It's eye-opening to just see what the level is because often you're isolated to the place where you are, and sometimes you don't quite fully understand what the level is. Maybe because I think that's important. If you're only isolated in the one area, then you don't quite understand that. So you might not be fully prepared then in the future to what you're getting yourself into in auditions, maybe. So I think that's a good way to prepare for that, knowing kind of where you are, if there's maybe things you can learn from the other dancers because you see maybe that's, oh, maybe that's something I can develop on because you see that from another person, but not comparing it, but seeing it as something that you can take from them. But I can definitely understand that it's challenging because I've had those times too when you're a bit tired, maybe you're in not the best mood. It's easy to compare then, but I think there's definitely both sides to it.
Yeah. And what about that side of absorbing different cultures and just even the varying countries and the lifestyles and the cities? Do you think that that is a valuable training
For sure,
as an
definitely.
artist?
That's what I really like because I've had great teachers And I'm like, oh, I would love to have this teacher for years and years. As much as I love it, in a way, it's also nice to just have that change because I want to be constantly learning, have a different approach. Even sometimes if it's not maybe your preferred approach, it's still great to just have your mind open. What I've really found interesting for myself is just trying to not be too judgmental of new information,
Mhm.
but keeping my mind open to absorb and see, does that work for me? What can I take from that? And I found that just really interesting over the years to just take from different teachers and just making sure I take the time to reflect for myself, not getting too much just do the exercise and then that's in the past, but reflecting on what that can help me with. Because I think reflecting is super important, that I'm using the training and the learning as a valuable experience that I can help myself to grow and not to just go through it, but reflecting so that like next time I can just think about it in a different way. And then having all those different influences and stimulus around me has definitely helped because all the contemporary that I've learnt has helped me be more efficient in ballet. So there's lots of things to learn by having different teachers, and I would encourage people to just seek more of other things. If they only have one or two teachers, then I think it can just limit their possibilities in a way.
Mm, mm, mm. Interesting. Um, what does Chickadee mean to you?
Shiketi, for me, firstly, it's just about connection because the connections that I've made with it, connections to my body that I've learned in foundations, appreciating basics, because I feel like in the syllabus there's clear levels. There's you start from the more basic things and then you build on those things. So learning these connections and putting these things together, I think that's what's really important because often that you see all these really cool tricks sometimes or these like wow moments. Often in audiences, there's a really cool thing and people start clapping. But in a way, it made me appreciate the basics of what it takes to get there, gave me that foundation that I think I really needed. And there's quite a patience to it as well, learning these things. But I really like that development of it that helped me get to a certain point. It gave me a real understanding of my body, an awareness, I think it really gave me because it feels logical as well to me. Like, and also just like the history of it is very interesting to me from
Mm.
especially what you taught me as well.
Oh, well, I love a bit of history, as you know.
Yeah.
I still continue to do that in class. I like the word connections, and I think um, one of the joyous things that I think about and with the connections of Team Australia at the time that we had um, in Florence, which I just love that whole connection there. But I look at the names of the dancers that we had then. You know, there was Amy Lim, who's now with Ballet Marseille. Noah Benzi Drayton, I think, is at the Paris Opera. Dario Zanini Sassanini, he's with Professional Year with the Queensland Ballet. Laura Van Zoon, I know, was dancing in Germany. Lily Menchenko, another dancer who went through the John Cranko School and now is again dancing in Germany. Um, I think Zara Sinise that went over to the Netherlands. We had a great lot of people, and it was that connections of lives um, in one moment in Florence that was really, really, really interesting. And I hope those connections, I don't know whether you still connect with those people at any time. We should perhaps have a reunion.
Yeah, it would be really nice because it's always great to just hear what people are up to because I think that's really what makes experiences is the people around you, not necessarily what you're doing, but what you're surrounded by, that can really like make the experience. And that's why I think I enjoyed the Cicchetti International in Florence so much, because the people I was with, like we just had a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember it was my birthday, and you even gave me a birthday party. It was so much fun. There's lots of fun in Florence, um, and we were going to have our next Cicchetti International one was meant to be in Sydney. Unfortunately, COVID stopped that. Um, what was COVID like for you?
Yeah, quite interesting. I would just say lots of fluctuations in a way, many ups and downs, which I think many people can relate to. At first, like we were like ridiculously lucky. We were staying in the boarding school at Paluca in Dresden, Germany. And there, because I was still under 18, we were staying at the boarding school, which was connected to the whole campus. While everyone was locked down at home, we had the whole campus with 11 studios and a big outdoor area. So that's definitely very different. So it didn't really feel like lockdown in the beginning. But then a bit later in the second kind of wave of Corona, I had to move out because I was over 18. So I was living in my own apartment. And then I experienced a bit more of a typical lockdown. It definitely came with its challenges. Luckily, I've got a positivity that's been instilled in me in a way. So I was able to keep sane, but often there was obviously moments where you just remember what life used to be like or what it could be like or what you could do. So when you get stuck in that, obviously there's moments where it was difficult, but luckily I've learned a lot about gratitude and presence and accepting the state of what it is and trying to make stuff out of that. So I think that really helped me to guide myself through that time without too many difficulties.
Mm-hmm. Look, the next Cicchetti International competition is going to be in 2024 um, in America, which is rather exciting. Now, at our last one in Florence, and I haven't mentioned that Cameron Holmes, who won the senior division, another Australian dancer who's now with the Australian Ballet Company, and also has just come off being the lead of American in Paris. So he's kind of using a couple of genres there. So we were lucky to have two uh, male dancers actually win both the junior and senior division. What would you say to any young aspiring dancers who are looking at that competition in 2024? What advice could you give them?
I think it all comes down to individuality, making sure that you're putting a bit of yourself into your movement.
Hmm.
I feel that's the main thing that I pick up when I watch dance is yes, we focus so much on the way that we do movement and the lines and the forms in space. But at the end of the day, I think people want to see our personality. They want to connect to feelings because if we like embody certain feelings within ourselves, that projects to the outside and they can empathize with that. And I think that's what really connects people. If you can genuinely feel something with the way that you do something, like if you're rehearsing a solo, trying to like keep it fresh for yourself that you're genuinely feeling the thing that you're showing, because I think if you're genuine, they will genuinely feel that connection. And that's constantly what I find. Just sometimes I just find it a bit sad to see it lacking the personality, because we can get so focused on how we do the movement and how it looks. But at the end of the day, I think it's also just more satisfying, I think, for the dancer if they're playing with the movement and connecting to those feelings. Because personally, I think that's always really helped me because we all know dancing at times is very challenging and strenuous, but connecting to those feelings and those ideas helps me to navigate those movements in an enjoyable way, connecting to the pleasure of movement. I think that's just like really important, just making sure it's genuine.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fantastic advice, and we really appreciate that. I'm sure the dancers will love to hear that. What's your future?
In a way, the future is a very interesting question for me because often I focus so much on the present moment.
Mm.
Obviously, you have to keep in mind the direction you're heading, the small steps to get you there, but I try not to hyperfixate on the future. I feel like, in a way, if I focus on the present and I practice and have the right actions within the present moment, it will help to build my future in a way.
Mhm.
So I don't think about it necessarily too much because I feel like if I put my energy into what's happening now, I can create the future I want. And I think those things will fall into place. Because if I just think about it too much, then it stays in my head, I guess, in a way. So the present is like it's super important to me. It's probably the most vital thing in my life because we experience everything through right now. Often that's like so challenging to do, to connect to where you are and not get lost in what happened and what's coming up. But I constantly just try to actively remember those things, practice things to help me stay here. Because in the end, I think, yeah, if I focus on now and implement the right things, it'll help build the future. I don't need to know what will happen, but I think it will happen.
And I'm sure it will. I'm sure the future will be amazing. It's been fantastic to be able to speak to you, Josh, and we value your time, and thank you very much. And I love that. I think perhaps leaving this conversation on Chiquetti and connections. I love the word connections, and it's again been wonderful to connect with you. Uh, I think it's the evening for you, although it's morning here in Australia. We wish you all the very, very best in life, and thank you.
Thank you so much.